All right, we got it. I'm pretty sure we're live now, so we can just start rolling.
Cool. Well, VJ, thanks for agreeing to talk with us. I definitely appreciate your time.
No, happy to do it.
Yeah, yeah. So why don't we start with, could you tell us a little bit about your current program and how you're leveraging students and what that's all about?
Sure. When I got here to USF, our MBA students were taking one quantitative class in the core, and they were essentially no electives at all. And so over time, as we got demand from students, we started to add electives. But what it was clear to me that it was still a little bit too much classroom. And so we started to augment the electives with case studies. But the thing that really sort of kind of lit our program on fire was adding a projects class that helped students pull together both mathematical and statistical tools that they'd learned in classes, software skills that they had learned in those classes, but then also new math that they had to learn to kind of go where the projects led them, and oftentimes new software techniques or tools. And you know, so much of what our business analysts, data scientists, and everyone in between does these days is self-teach. There's a sense of kind of the profession that involves data and models to be very much a constant graduate school. And so part of what we're trying to do is prepare our students to enter that world. And part of what we're trying to do is prepare them with experiences and stories and bumps and bruises that are going to help them both land their first job and be successful at it.
So when did you start running projects with students and external clients?
So I started running projects on a one-off basis even before I came to USF when I worked at San Francisco State. And I was sort of figuring it out along the way. What's the best way to engage the students with the clients? What kind of background do the students need? How do I kind of participate and support them? So that was kind of all sort of experience being gained in order to launch a class. And we launched the class in the spring of 2013 for the first time. And so we've run the class for the last 3 springs with a whole variety of clients, big and small.
And then how do you find those clients? Do they come to you or do you reach out?
It's funny. I would say that they're probably one third, one third, and one third. I certainly do a kind of a relatively constant reaching out and listening, and part of that listening is with our Masters in Data Science or Masters in Analytics program that we have here. They've got a whole pipeline of clients coming in, and some of them far more technical and some of them less technical. So they'll occasionally steer some of the less software intensive, more business intensive projects towards us, as well as folks through my own network. A third are clients that come back. We've had really good success with clients being happy with what the students have done and wanting to do additional projects. And a third are people that just reach out to us proactively.
Because that's one area, when I talk to people in higher ed administration about doing projects with students or with faculty, one of the things they always ask me is, well, how do we find those opportunities, right? Being in administration, we're sort of segmented in most instances
Right.
from the academic mission. And do you have any thoughts if I were sitting at Colorado University in Denver, how would I find a faculty member or a student to help me with the project?
Um, so this is from the perspective of administration rather than the perspective of the faculty, just to
Yeah.
confirm. Right. I think first and foremost, I would look for faculty that are doing a good job of placing students, and so your career office is a great contact point for that. Just say, which kind of faculty are hands-on, involved, connected with the student job search, and connected with industry in general. That's your first kind of crucial breadcrumb as an administrator, kind of looking for faculty that might be interested in this stuff, is ones that are already organically gravitating towards that interface between university life and the business world.
Right.
Um, Secondly, I would look to our development officers around, hey, who are our people that you've been talking to who have project ideas. Because it's something that we're experiencing pretty commonly, is that as our fundraising folks go out and talk to alums, alums would like to give back in some way. And the ways that they typically talk about are hiring students, hiring graduates, coming back and giving talks, or being available for informational interviews, and doing projects. So those are kind of the, in a way, I'm looking for people that are already trying to touch that interface point, both faculty and alums,
Right.
as a place to kind of get into it from an administration perspective.
Okay. Yeah, I think those are good. Those are both areas I've never considered. So
Yeah,
that's
same here.
Yeah.
You guys don't know we're about to call you for a large gift to San Francisco State?
I know, right?
Greg, we got to edit that piece out, right?
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of projects, so switching gears a little bit, you know, how do we as administration gear our projects in an appropriate way to make them relevant and meaningful for students?
You know, I would say that it depends on the instructor that you're partnered with.
Okay.
And so, I mean, give a couple of cases there. One case is this. The professor has a slot in their class for a student project. It's X weeks long, 3 weeks long, 5 weeks long, whatever it is, for a student project. And when it's as sharply defined as that, you're best geared to a relatively tight and narrow problem statement, and with doing as much of the data prep for them as you can. Conversely, in my class, where both the time span and the problem description are more open-ended, that's a case where, in a sense, kind of being able to point and say that's north, as opposed to saying I need you to get to this longitude and this latitude, and helping them through their interaction with you refine that sense of what the true objective of the project is where a lot of the learning is for them. And weirdly, although it requires more time from the project sponsor, sometimes I've heard from people that students have helped them think it through.
Mm-hmm.
Dialogue in a way that if I ask you to write a spec, you got a lot of things going on in your head. You've got, that needs quiet time and thought, which is the hardest thing to come by when you're balancing a bunch of projects out there outside the university setting.
Right. So it sounds like what I'm hearing is focus on finding faculty partners first, and then work through the problems with them that best suits what their needs are.
Right, within the context of their curriculum.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's sort of like, have your problems off to the side here, find your faculty partner, say this is sort of what we're struggling with, do any of these align with what you're looking for, and then you can either scope it tighter or looser depending on the needs of that faculty.
Yeah. Right, and folks like you guys who are kind of keeping a list of projects and are kind of keeping a sort of a sense of what's important but not urgent.
Yep.
You're 2 legs up, and as other people that are watching this or hearing this, I want to encourage you to start with that idea, because it's much harder to respond to a cold call saying, hey, we're interested in doing a project, do you have something for us, where you're starting from scratch, and you think there must be 100 things, but in that moment, you're so busy, you're so sidetracked that you can't come up with something in that moment.
Right. Greg, do you have any questions? I think those are the ones that I had.
I think that the one thing I would add is one of the great challenges of this is, well, I want to talk about 2. The first is projects. There's some clients who are happy to be doing something with a university and they see it as charity. We're helping the school out, and I think that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But to be honest, the learning is always greater, and the benefit to both the students and the client is always more substantial if the problem is real and relevant,
mm-hmm.
as opposed to, Well, yeah, we kind of like to have somebody look at that. It'd be nice if they came up with something, but if they don't, who cares? Because the students sense that, the faculty senses that. And the last thing you want them to do is come back with an academic presentation. Um, Unless your only goal is to is the recruiting side, then you get a look at some students that way, and there's definitely some small benefit. But when the problem is real and relevant to your business, um, everybody steps up their game.
Right.
Everybody brings more to it. Um, the other piece too is, I think, being honest and direct with the students. Your feedback is so much more important, even when it feels like it's criticism, because we can't fix problems we're not aware of. We can't improve things if we haven't got the context that says this needs to be improved and this is where it's falling short. So as much bluntness in that, obviously tough love.
Right.
In our program, in our projects class, we've built in that feedback, and part of that is education for the students that this is the way these kinds of projects work. Is you work really, really hard. You try to maximize the information you have. You try to organize your thoughts, and you put it out in front of people. And if you've done a good job, you've caused them to come up with questions that either they nor you have considered. And if you've done an incomplete job, you're not going to know it until you hear it from them. So either way, the value of that feedback is huge. And I've had clients who've said, well, God, the students were getting ready to graduate. We didn't want to be, too rough on them. And that was good input. And what we've done is we've built in earlier stage feedback and encouraged everybody to be honest and everybody to not take it personally.
Right.
So I think these are all good questions, and I don't feel like I have so much a definitive answer as a range of answers. Oh, let me add one more thing, and that is the faculty member has to be willing to go inside a cave and go inside of a problem situation that they maybe don't know the answer to, and has to be okay with that discomfort. And even for me, even after having a long career, a dozen years in consulting, analytics consulting, I still, often will go into a place of discomfort when the problem that's been presented to the student seems like it's more than either they or I can handle. And that emotional learning experience for the students and to some extent for the faculty is great preparation for them.
Right.
Yeah, you're gonna hit that. You're gonna hit that every day once you step out of the university setting, right? So
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and it just I think the thing that I'm getting from this is how important that faculty relationship is for anybody who's in administration who wants to run projects with students and faculty. You really have to find that right faculty partner.
Right. I kind of think of it as trying to put together a team of people to play shortstop. The students have all the skills, all the energy, and all the sort of hours available to them that your young shortstops do. The professors have less of that natural talent and less of that natural time available to them, and have to bring kind of wisdom and experience to it. And the administration, they're like the general manager. They don't have any of those things. They don't have time to be close to the problem. They don't have time to live with it and work through it. But they have the relationships to put people in place.
Right.
It takes that whole team to cover that role.
Yep.
Can we talk about relationships for a second, since I think this is a good segue? Vijay, I think one of the reasons we work so well with you, or we always assume that one of the reasons we work so well with you, is we speak your language, right? We can identify these problems within the workplace,
right,
and put them in a way that you understand, or a way that we know that's an existing problem that we can solve. I think that we're very fortunate in doing that. Is that necessary? Do you see other clients and engagements that you have where you're able to extract those types of solutions by just talking about the problem? I guess my question really is, if it's not someone who either has OR background or whatever the solution set you're bringing to solve these problems, what can administration do to help get over that hump?
Great question, and I think at the core of it is to have as good an understanding of the class of problems that a particular professor's class or degree program is good at tackling. Like, for example, if we were to get a problem from, say, a social media company that wasn't going to be successfully solved without the development of an embedded algorithm that can be put into production, I'd say, you know what, that's probably not a good fit. And so to the extent that administration can do a good job of steering things to the right faculty or the right program, it's really an understanding kind of what that program's trying to accomplish. I mean, in a way, guys, working with you guys has really raised the question of how much coding skill do my students need to have, do new MBAs need to have in order to make a contribution? And you guys have been able to kind of meet us halfway on that. And I've had other clients who were just amazed where my students had much more technical capability than their in-house folks.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of fit is I think best sussed out around by understanding what are the goals of the program, and to some extent the inclinations of the professor.
Right.
Yeah, so kind of an intermediary step to not only engage with these professors, but then understand their context that they're solving problems within.
Right.
So, make sure that there's a solution set there, do some research, and then bring your problems to that set.
Right, and I think, to our earlier conversation, I think it helps if you understand kind of where their students are going and what kinds of roles they're landing up in.
That's a good point.
And that's where your career office can be really, really helpful.
Cool. I think that's all the questions we had.
Great. Well, the only other agenda item I had, guys, is I wanted to reiterate that although we had such a tiny group last year, we would really love to have a project from you guys this year, and I expect to have a group. I mean, I'm expecting to have 15 to 20 students and 4 to 6 projects.
Wow.
Go this spring. Our electives are pretty heavily enrolled this fall, and I'll know more in about a month when they go through spring registration, but kind of the preliminary feedback has been, we got a lot of students interested. So please keep that on your radar, and I'll circle back with you in November.
Yeah.
And then one other thing that
and then also, Vijay, we probably have 20 to 30 to 40, maybe 50 people watching this thing at regional. So I think we can also extend our set of people interested if we can start getting those problems defined. So.
Well, that'd be fantastic. And for those that are outside the Bay Area, let me just kind of share with you that we have on a couple of occasions over the last 3 years had clients from outside the region, and that's been a little bit more of a challenge, but it's also been equally educational to teaching my students how to develop relationships through Skype and teaching them to really articulate clearly data requests because they can't go stand at anybody's desk without getting on an airplane. And so we see more and more of the demand for people who are comfortable working in multi-site remote project teams. And so we have no fear of that because that can be educational for us as well.
Great.
Yeah, I think that's maybe a to-do for us is to maybe collect those project ideas and see if we can't figure out something that would work there.
Yep.
As well as adding.
Go ahead.
Oh, as well as adding our own projects to that list as well.
So, well, now, guys, I think off of this topic to an even more radical one, and that is just to give you guys a heads up. I am probably going to go on sabbatical next year, and up until 2 weeks ago, we were going to pack it up and go somewhere crazy, Australia or Istanbul or somewhere in between. The thing that's been newly introduced since my daughter's a sixth grader, so first year in middle school, has been we may not want to rip her out of the middle of middle school next year. And so I'm also looking around for sabbatical locations and groups I might visit here locally. And my thought with you guys has been that I could. First off, I'm not looking for any funding because I'm sort of fully funded for my sabbatical. Thought with you guys is maybe I'd come work on a project or two, but mostly stand in the corner and teach myself SQL, more complicated SQL stuff and R and Python, and have you guys to bounce stuff off of. So
Absolutely.
keep that in the back of your head. The question
Yeah.
is whether it's just too late, and I'm just too lazy to do that. But
Well,
I'm feeling more urgency about it only because across the country we're just seeing more demand from MBA students for basic coding skills, partly because that's where jobs are and partly because they're less afraid. They're coming up through the educational ranks with more technology background.
Well, I think one thing that I think we have that we could throw out there for you is I have a very good relationship with the folks at the Berkeley Institute for Data Science, where they're doing cutting edge stuff on big data. They're doing just all sorts of infrastructure things. They're building out open source tools, and I probably spend at least, I'd say, 2 days a month working out of bids, just popping open my laptop and working. So if you wanted, I mean, we'd give you full access to whatever data we had, plug you in over at bids, and
Great. Where are they located over there, Andrew?
the Doe Library, the main library on the Berkeley campus.
Sure.
They have a suite in there, really nice suite. So.
And so are they kind of, they're not sort of inherently within engineering or within arts and sciences,
No.
within Haas. They're kind of...
Yeah, they're an umbrella organization that was started to sort of encompass analytics in all of its forms at the Berkeley campus. They're extremely well funded, and their PI is the Nobel Prize winner in physics. His name escapes me right now, but he's got a Nobel Prize, and then it's run by a guy that was doing like geospatial analysis.
Yeah.
And then they have what they call BIDS fellows, and these folks can be like neuroscientists. There's a social scientist that's a BIDS fellow. I think there's a guy that is from iSchool, from School of Information, but does a lot with Haas. And so it's really an eclectic group. And there's some engineering types, and a lot of CS folks hang out there.
Well, I still have a bunch of faculty parking passes from my last sabbatical at Berkeley.
Right.
So that won't hurt. By the way, Andrew, actually, Greg, you'll be interested in this as well. I'm going to send you guys a link to my last column because it's about a software company that came out of the iSchool at Cal.
Yeah.
That uses machine learning to analyze student writing.
Wow.
Feedback. I think you guys have been given the UC connection, the Berkeley connection, and you guys being part of UC, that you'll get a kick out of the column.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be great.
But hey, let me know how this thing goes, and then we'll talk again in early November.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That sounds great.
Have fun down there, too.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
That's the home of the 3-for-1.
Yeah.
What's
We're
the
going to
3-for-1?
Yeah.
The 3-for-1 happy hours.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Good.
That's my definitive memory. When I was a college student, we were on a road trip back to Minnesota from Southern California, and we stopped at ASU because one of my friends had to take the GREs.
Nice.
All right.
And so the other three of us were, busy with the happy hours while he was doing his final prep and taking the GRE.
Like, we're right behind you, buddy.
So exactly. We're we're right here. We're just whatever you need, we're right here. So have a good trip, and we'll talk soon. This was fun, you guys.
Yeah.
Great, I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks a lot, Vijay.
Happy to do it. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.